Hello, my name is Harper and I'm 30 years old. I live in a house that was never truly mine, even though it was supposed to be. From the curb, our place in Brookhaven, Georgia looks like a postcard. White columns, clipped hedges, a porch swing that creaks when the wind remembers it, and neighbors who wave like everything inside must be just as perfect. It isn't. Inside, the air feels like a museum of silence, except when my family is celebrating my younger brother, Mason. Mason is 25, blonde, loud, and magnetic in the way the internet rewards. He's a motivational speaker, a startup founder with a flashy beta app, and the host of a podcast that prints slogans on mugs. My parents, Marissa and Randall, orbit him like he's the sun, and they're grateful to be kept warm. Every small win of his is a catered dinner, a toast, a photo wall. When he closed a minor sponsorship, they acted like he'd written the Constitution. Me? I'm the shadow in the hallway who clears plates without being asked. I'm the daughter who doesn't get asked anything. It wasn't always like that. My grandfather, Franklin, used to say I carried a calm fire. He'd press old leather-bound journals into my hands and tell me, "You listen like a writer. One day that will matter more than noise." He died 2 years ago, and with him, the last warm corner of the house faded. The room stayed the same, the feeling didn't. After the funeral, my parents started saying that Franklin left everything to Mason. They repeated it so casually it began to sound like weather, just a fact you live under. Sometimes, while slicing vegetables, my mother would glance at me and say, "If you had direction, maybe your grandfather would have trusted you with something." Mason would grin over his phone and add, "He knew who the real winner was." The words were small knives, and I learned to swallow them whole. Last night they threw another party, balloons, ring lights, and a rented neon sign that said "Rise and Grind" for Mason's podcast relaunch. I wasn't invited, although I had helped him brainstorm the name 2 weeks ago. I watched from the stairs as laughter spilled down the hallway, like perfume I wasn't allowed to wear. Later, when the house fell quiet, I sat by the banister and picked at a chip in the paint and wondered how long I could live as a guest in my own life. Morning arrived with the stale sparkle of confetti and half-drained champagne flutes. Crumbs gathered in the seams of the dining chairs. Marissa drifted into the kitchen in a silk robe and said, "Oh, I didn't know you were still here," as if I were a forgotten guest. Randall followed, eyes on his tablet. "Stay out of the dining room," he said. "We're taking professional photos with Mason later. Keep everything tidy." I was the clutter, apparently. Mason descended the stairs in a lemon-yellow shirt, heels clicking on the tile of his own ego. "Did you see the engagement on last night's reel?" he said. "Grandpa would have been proud." The word grandpa landed wrong. Mason had rolled his eyes when Franklin invited us into his study for long stories. I never rolled mine. I leaned in. "You think Franklin would have liked your content?" I asked. "He left everything to me, didn't he?" Mason said, smirking. My mother smiled. My father didn't correct him. The room hummed with their certainty, but something in me twisted. A memory rose. The day after the funeral, a thick, sealed envelope with Franklin's initials handed to Randall in the home office. I had seen it briefly before he slid it into a drawer. Back then grief bent time. I let it pass. Now the memory rang like a bell. I rinsed a glass, set it upside down on the rack, and felt suspicion harden into resolve. While they arranged lights and practiced smiles, I walked toward the office and stopped at the drawer I remembered. The handle felt cold and a little stiff, like it hadn't been used in a while. I gripped it, drew a breath, and pulled. The drawer slid open with a reluctant groan, as though it knew what I was about to uncover. Inside were the predictable things: folders, pens, a stapler, a calculator with its screen cracked. But pressed beneath the stack, the edges just visible, was the envelope I remembered. The paper was thick, the kind Franklin always used for important letters. His initials, FS, were embossed in faded gold. The seal had been broken. My heart hammered as I pulled it out. The flap had already been lifted. They had seen it. They had hidden it. With trembling hands, I unfolded the papers. The language was formal, clipped, but the meaning rang like a bell. Last will and testament of Franklin. Every asset, every property, every account. All of it was left to me. Harper, in black ink, witnessed, signed, and dated 2 months before he passed. The total value listed at the bottom made my throat dry: $3,450,000. The house, the investments, the startup equity, the bank accounts, even the rental property outside Atlanta. All of it was mine. I snapped photos with my phone one by one, careful to capture every page. My hands were shaking, but I knew I couldn't leave this proof behind. If they could bury the will once, they destroy it outright the next time. When I tucked the envelope back into the drawer and closed it, I didn't feel guilt. I felt something else, something hot and sharp under my ribs. Franklin had trusted me, and they had tried to erase that trust. They had lied to me for 2 years, let me live as a ghost in the house that was mine all along. For the first time in my life, I whispered words I wasn't used to saying out loud. It's mine. All of it is mine. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen counters, catching on leftover champagne glasses and gold confetti stuck like scars to the floor. Marissa moved around in her silk robe, humming as if nothing in the world could disturb her peace. Randall scrolled on his tablet, already dressed for the day, his face unreadable. Mason strutted in, freshly pressed, phone in one hand, bragging about podcast engagement like he was reciting scripture. I stood in the doorway, phone in my hand, photos of the will glowing on the screen. My chest tightened, but my voice came out steady. I know everything. Marissa looked up, brows knitting. Excuse me? I held the phone higher, so they could see. Franklin's will. The real one. The one you pretended didn't exist. I've seen it. Randall set down his tablet. His jaw stiffened. Mason scoffed, smirk stretching wide. Please. You probably faked that. Grandpa knew who the real winner was. Me. He chose me, I said quietly. He wrote it down, signed it, left everything to me. The house, the accounts, the investments, $3,450,000 worth. Not you. Silence hit for a beat. Then Marissa's face hardened, and she hissed, Get out. You want to accuse us? You want to start a war in this family? Then leave. Now. I'm not leaving, I said. Not until I take what's mine. Her eyes narrowed, her voice cutting like glass. You're lucky we let you stay here at all. Randall's tone was cold, dismissive. You've always been a problem, Harper. Don't make this uglier than it has to be. I turned, heart pounding, and went to my room. I pulled out my old duffel bag, stuffed in clothes, notebooks, and my charger. I zipped it shut, the photos still warm on my phone in my pocket, proof burning like a brand against my side. That's when they stormed in. Marissa's voice cracked through the air. You don't take anything. Nothing in this house belongs to you. She lunged for the bag. Before I could react, Mason stepped forward. His hand whipped across my face in a stinging slap that sent me stumbling. Randall closed in, grabbed me by the hair, and yanked hard. Pain exploded across my scalp as he dragged me out of the room, down the hallway, and toward the front door. My bag slipped from my hands. Outside, he shoved me onto the porch with such force my knees scraped the wood. My face burned where Mason had struck me. My scalp throbbed where Randall's grip had been. I stood there with only my phone and 42 crumpled dollars in my pocket, the door slamming shut behind me. For the first time, I wasn't trapped inside anymore. But I was on my own. The door slammed, and the echo of it cut deeper than Randall's grip or Mason's slap. I stood on the porch in the morning heat, my shirt twisted, my knees smarting from the fall. My scalp still burned where his hand had yanked my hair, and my cheek throbbed with Mason's handprint. For a full minute, I didn't move. The house behind me looked picture-perfect, the kind of place neighbors drove by and thought, what a lucky family. They couldn't see the bruises already rising under my skin, or the way my chest felt hollow. I had nothing but my phone and a wad of bills, $42. My bag, my clothes, my journals, all of it was back inside, claimed by people who had decided I wasn't worth owning even my own belongings. I forced my feet down the steps, each one shaking, and started walking. I didn't know where to go. Every direction felt wrong, but forward was the only one left. I sat on a low stone ledge a few blocks away, my phone at 20% battery. My thumb hovered over my contacts. For a moment, I thought about calling no one, just disappearing. But then Franklin's voice came back, steady in my head. You listen like a writer. One day that will matter more than noise. Noise was all they had. I had proof. I opened my photos. Each page of Franklin's will was clear, sharp, undeniable. Every asset listed, every witness signature, every figure, $3,450,000. I scrolled until my hands steadied. Then, I tapped a number I hadn't dialed in years. Maxwell. He answered on the second ring, his voice exactly the same as it had been in college, measured, steady, with that lawyer's calm I used to tease him about. Harper. I swallowed, the word rasping in my throat. I need help. Maxwell didn't ask questions right away. His tone shifted into something firm, professional, but there was warmth under it. Where are you? Brookhaven. Not far from the house, I said, my voice trembling. They threw me out. Mason hit me. Randall dragged me out by my hair. I have nothing. Just my phone and some cash. There was a pause. Then his reply came like steel. Stay where you are. I'm coming. He found me sitting on the stone ledge, sweat clinging to my back, face red where Mason's hand had struck. When his car pulled up, he didn't hesitate, just opened the door and guided me inside. The air conditioning stung my skin, but for the first time all morning, I felt like I could breathe. Back at his townhouse, I sat on his couch in borrowed clothes while he brewed coffee. His shelves were lined with case files, books on civil law, and a few framed photos from his early days in practice. He set the mug down in front of me, then leaned forward. Show me, he said. I unlocked my phone and handed it over. He studied the photos of Franklin's will, page by page. When he reached the signature line, he exhaled through his nose. This is real. It's witnessed, dated, and it names you as the sole heir. They hid this from you, Harper. That's not just cruel, it's illegal. My throat tightened. They said Franklin left everything to Mason. They made me believe I was worth nothing. Maxwell shook his head. No. They committed will suppression. That's fraud. And the assault? That's battery. You have enough to take them to court and win. He slid a legal pad across the table and began outlining steps with neat, sharp strokes of his pen. 1. File a probate petition to validate the will. 2. Demand Randall and Marissa produce the original. 3. Use your photos as evidence if they refuse. 4. File a civil suit for damages, emotional, financial, and punitive. 5. File criminal complaints for the assault and suppression of legal documents. When he looked up, his eyes were steady. You're not fighting this alone, Harper. We're going to take everything back, and they're going to answer for every lie. For the first time since Franklin died, I felt something I hadn't dared to hold on to in years. Hope. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in the front row of a probate courtroom in downtown Brookhaven, my palms pressed together so tightly they ached. Maxwell sat beside me, papers neatly stacked in front of him. Every page of Franklin's will that I had photographed was now printed, labeled, and tabbed. My name, Harper, was bold at the top of every motion he had filed. Across the aisle, Randall and Marissa sat stiff. Mason beside them in a tailored suit like this was just another appearance for his followers. He leaned back, tapping on his phone, smug as ever. They didn't look at me, but I felt their contempt settle like smoke. The bailiff called the court to order. Justice Carroll entered, robe swaying, eyes sharp as a blade. She wasted no time. We are here to review the estate of Franklin, deceased. Counsel, proceed. Maxwell rose.
Come. Clear.
Every word a scalpel. Your Honor, my client Harper is the rightful heir of Franklin's estate. We present photographic evidence of the last will and testament, dated and witnessed, naming her sole beneficiary. The respondents, Randall, Marissa, and Mason, knowingly withheld this document for over 2 years. During this time, my client was subjected to emotional abuse, dispossession, and, upon discovery of the will, physical assault. He placed the packet on the judge's desk with a quiet authority that made even Mason's tapping fingers still. Marissa shot to her feet. That's a lie. She faked those photos. Justice Carol raised one brow. Sit down. You'll have your turn. Randall's jaw flexed. Mason smirked, whispering something that earned him a sharp glare from the bailiff. Maxwell called me forward. My legs shook, but when I stood at the podium, the words came steady. I didn't want this fight. I wanted honesty. But they erased my name from my grandfather's legacy and made me believe I didn't matter. He trusted me. They tried to bury that trust. The judge's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. When I sat down, Maxwell presented the medical report documenting the bruises on my scalp and cheek, along with the statement we had filed for assault. The photographs of Franklin's will were projected onto the courtroom screen. My name glowed larger than it had ever felt in my life. Justice Carol leaned forward. The court has seen enough. Justice Carol's gavel struck once, sharp as thunder in the silent room. Her voice was firm, steady, cutting through the air like a blade. This court validates the submitted photographic copy of Franklin's will as authentic and binding. Based on the evidence, the failure of the respondents to produce the original and their coordinated suppression of the rightful heir, all assets of the estate, valued at $3,450,000, are hereby restored to Harper. My chest tightened, breath catching in a way that felt both light and crushing. The words I had waited years to hear had finally been spoken aloud. The judge wasn't finished. She turned her gaze on Randall, Marissa, and Mason. Suppression of a will is fraud. Assaulting the rightful heir is criminal. This court recommends the following sentences to be finalized in criminal proceedings. She read each name like a verdict. Randall, 9 months of incarceration for assault and obstruction, plus restitution of $15,000 for damages and legal costs. Marissa, 6 months of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a mandated public apology for will suppression. Mason, 18 months in county jail for will fraud and battery, forfeiture of part of his startup equity, and ineligibility to serve as executor of any estate for life. Mason's smug smile faltered for the first time. His phone slipped from his hand onto the bench with a dull clatter. Marissa's face drained of color. Randall's fists clenched, but there was no fight left in his eyes. Justice Carol set her gavel down. This case is a reminder that silence does not equal surrender, and truth cannot be erased simply because it is inconvenient. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck again, final this time. The room didn't erupt in noise. It collapsed into a heavy, echoing quiet. My parents sat frozen, Mason's shoulders slumped. For the first time, I didn't feel smaller than them. I felt taller. Maxwell touched my arm gently. It's over, he whispered. But I knew better. It wasn't over. It was only beginning. The courthouse steps were hot under my shoes as I walked out into the sunlight. For a moment, I just stood there, blinking, feeling the weight of the verdict sink into me. Behind me, Randall and Marissa were escorted out by deputies, their faces tight with shame. Mason followed in cuffs, his influencer glow dimmed under the hard light of the law. Cameras caught every angle, reporters murmuring about the fall of a rising star. His sponsors had already started pulling out. Maxwell stayed beside me, his presence steady. You did it, he said quietly. I shook my head, the words trembling out of me. We did it. Franklin did it. He never stopped believing I mattered. That night, I unlocked the door to the house that was finally legally mine. The silence inside was different, no longer hostile, but waiting. I touched the banister where I used to sit in the shadows, the paint chips still rough under my fingers. This time, it didn't feel like a reminder of invisibility. It felt like proof I had survived. Weeks later, the rooms began to change. New curtains, fresh paint, sunlight pouring through clean windows. The ghosts of laughter that had excluded me slowly faded, replaced by my own quiet rhythm. I didn't fill the house with noise. I let it breathe. With part of the inheritance, I created the Franklin Scholarship Fund, designed for young women who, like me, had been told their voices didn't matter. Letters began to arrive. Girls from small towns, single mothers trying to finish school, women who had been silenced by families louder than their dreams. Their words reminded me of nights I had whispered into journals, thinking no one would ever listen. Now someone was listening. Maxwell never drifted far. He'd sit across the kitchen table, case files pushed aside, his blue eyes steady on me. One evening, under the oak tree Franklin had planted decades ago, he took my hands in his. "I didn't just fight this case because it was right," he said. "I fought it because I believe in you, Harper. Always have." For the first time, I didn't shrink from love. I let it stay. On our wedding day, we stood in the backyard of the house that once held me captive. The same house now bore witness to my freedom. Vanessa, no, not Vanessa anymore. No old characters needed, just a few close friends gathered. I wore a simple dress, carried no weight of apology, and when Maxwell slipped the ring onto my hand, the silence around us felt full, not empty. Now, every morning, I sip coffee in Franklin's old study, journals stacked neatly by the window. I glance at the framed copy of the will on the wall, not out of revenge, but as a reminder. They tried to erase me, but I became permanent. I used to believe silence was safety, that if I kept my head down, if I didn't cause waves, maybe the world inside my house would stop ignoring me long enough to see me. But silence can also be a prison. For years, I lived in that prison, told I wasn't enough, told that everything worth celebrating belonged to someone else. My brother Mason was the star, and I was the shadow. My parents convinced me I had no place, no voice, no worth. But the truth has a way of waiting for you. My grandfather Franklin never saw me as invisible. He left behind more than just money. He left me proof that I mattered, proof they tried to bury. And when I held that will in my hands, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just about inheritance. It was about dignity. It was about refusing to live erased. When they dragged me out of my own house, when Mason's slap stung my face and Randall's grip burned my scalp, I thought it was the end of everything. But it was the beginning. Because the moment I hit the ground outside that door, I realized I didn't need their permission to exist. I had proof, I had truth, and I had the strength Franklin always told me was there. Walking back through that house as its rightful owner didn't feel like revenge. It felt like balance. It felt like stepping into the sunlight without flinching. Today, I wake up every morning knowing that I am not the shadow they said I was. I am not the failure they painted me to be. I am the granddaughter Franklin believed in. I am the woman who fought for her name and won. To anyone out there who feels erased, who feels like your voice has been stolen, don't believe the lies told about you. Don't let silence be your cage. The truth may be buried, but it is never gone. You are more permanent than the people who try to erase you. My name is Harper, and I am here to stay. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, make sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and emotional stories. Your support helps us bring you more content that truly matters.